Hello and welcome to this session on Robot Framework Beginner Tutorial. I'm Raghav and today we are going to see how to use variables in Robot Framework. So we are going to see what are variables in Robot Framework. We will look at what are the types of variables available. We will see how do we create variables and then we will see how do we refer variables in our Robot Framework. And towards the end of this session, we will also look at some useful tips. So in case you are new to Robot Framework and you do not know what are variables, do not worry. We will go very basic step by step. And by the end of this session, you will know exactly everything about variables, what variables are and how do you use them in Robot Framework. So to save some time, I have added some notes here. So what variables are? So variables are elements used to store values that can be referenced by other elements. For example, if I say name equals Raghav, so I have assigned the value Raghav to the variable name, and now I can use this variable name anywhere in my test case and I will get the value Raghav. So this is how we use variables in a very simple way, and we will exactly see how do we use them in Robot Framework. So in Robot Framework, we basically have three types of variables. We have scalar variables, we have list variables, and we have dictionary variables. And in a moment from now, you will exactly know what are these and how do you use them. In fact, there is another variable as well, which is environment variable. You cannot create an environment variable, but you can get or set an environment variable through your IDE and through Robot Framework, and we will see what exactly we have to do for that. So let us start, and we will go very basic step by step. The first step is we have to open our IDE, which is write. So you can go to the command prompt and you can say write.py. We have already seen that in our earlier session. So I have my write open here, and this is the test that we created in our earlier session. So what we are going to do is we will create a new test, and we will create a new test for a login test case. So let us create a new test. So what I will do is in the test suite, I will say right click and say new test and the name test2, and I will say okay. And here I have to create my test case. So what I'm going to do is I will go to a demo website. So this is the demo website that I'm going to, which is Orange HRM. I will also copy this and put it in the notes, and all these notes will be available in the description of this video. So do not worry, you will get all these notes in the description. So I'm going to this website, and this is a demo website which has a username and password. So I can enter this username and password and hit the login button, and it will log me in into the website. Okay, so we will create this simple use case. So let me go back and let me just copy this URL from here, and in my test case the first step I will say is open browser, and I have got this. I have pressed Control Spacebar on my keyboard and I have got this option, and here I will give the URL and here I will give the browser. So let me do it on Chrome. Okay, the next step is I have to enter the username. So let me go back. Yeah, so here I have to enter the username. So I have to get the locator for this username box. So I will do a right click. I am on Chrome, so I can do a right click and say inspect element. You can also use Firebug or any other means to locate. And here I am getting the ID as txt username. So this is the ID for this username text box. I will just copy it from here, and let me go back to my write, and here I will say the keyword is input text and the locator is id, which is equals to txt username, and here I have to give admin. The next step is I have to input password, and let me again go back to my website and locate find the identifier for password field. So this is txt password. Let me just copy it from here again. Go back and say id equals txt password, and here I have to say admin, and then I have to click on the login button. So I will select the keyword click button, and again I will go back and find the locator for the button. So this is the login button. Let me find the locator, and we have this id btn login. So again I will copy it from here, go back to my right and say id equals btn login, and then I will close the browser. So I will call the keyword close browser from Selenium, and that's it. So all these keywords are from Selenium, and in the earlier session we have already seen how do we add Selenium libraries. So in case you have directly come to this session, I request you to go back and watch the earlier session. So now our test case is done. We can press Control S on our keyboard to save it, and we can run it. Now let me run it. So let us start. Okay, we don't have any tags. Let me start it again. So it opens the Chrome browser, and this is the first test case which goes to Robot Framework, opens the browser and goes to Robot Framework and closes. And now it should start our second test case. Yes, it has started. Goes to Chrome browser, goes to Orange HRM website, and it gives username, password, and then logs in and then close. Now we want that we should run only test 2 and we should not run test 1 always. So what I'm going to do is, before I go to the variables, I'm going to go to test 2 here, and then in the settings there is a field for tags. So what I will do is I will add a tag here, which is anything I can add here. I'm just adding test 2 for easy referencing, and then in the run section I will say only run test with these tags, which is test 2. So from next time onwards our first test case will not run, and we will always have our test 2 running. So let me save this, and now let me go back to our notes. So we have done the first and the second step. The third step is we have to create a scalar variable for URL and refer it in test case. So let me go back to my right here, and what we are going to do is, here instead of hard coding this URL here, we are going to refer it through a variable. So we are going to go to test suite, do a right click and select new scalar variable, and here let me name it as anything I can name. Let me name it as URL, and I have to give the value. So I am going to give this value which I have given in my test case, the URL. So I copy this, or I can copy it from here as well. This is the URL. I'll say new scalar URL, and this is the value. You can also give some comment for documentation, which is optional. So I'm leaving it as blank and say OK. So we have got our scalar variable URL created, and now I have to refer it in test2 in this place. So for scalar variable, the syntax is you have to use a dollar symbol, and then in curly braces you have to give the variable name. So I will give a dollar symbol here. Let me just remove everything here. Give a dollar symbol and then curly braces and the variable name, which is URL, and that's it. Let me save it and see if this runs properly. I will start. So this should now run our second test case, and yes, it is going to the same URL. So this is successful, and we have seen how do we create a scalar variable and then how do we refer a scalar variable. So the advantage here is, for example, you want to run this test case on different versions of the URL or different environments where the URL will differ. The only thing you have to do is you can just edit it here and it will be referenced from here. Also, if you go to your uh, text edit tab here, you can see this variable has come here. So you can directly write variables here as well. So for example, if I say here dollar name and after some spaces I say Raghav, so this has also become a new variable and you can see it has come here as well, right? So you can create the variables from the text edit mode or directly as well. So let me for now just remove this and let us go to our next variable, which is list variable. So let us go back and do a right click again on the test suite and select new list variable, and let me say this is credentials. Okay, and here you can select the number of columns you want to have. So let me go with just one column, and here I will give the username and password and I will refer it from here. So username is admin and password is again admin, and I say okay. And now I will go to test2, and in place of this admin and admin username and password, I will refer the list variable, the values from the list variable. So the syntax for list variable is you have to give a add symbol and then in the curly braces the variable name. So I will come here, give add symbol, and with curly braces I will give the variable name credentials. And now because this is a list, I have to give a index number. So this is index 0, so it will take the very first value in the list. And again here as well I will say add credentials and value the first value. So this is the first position, which is 0, and this is the second position, which is 1. So this is how I can refer to the list variable. Now this is not a very best example of showing the list variable, but for now just understand this, and in the next sessions we will look more into this in detail. So let me just save and run it again and see if this works fine. So I will run the test case again. Let us see if this takes the username and password from list variable. So it goes, and yes, it puts in the username and password, and our test is successful. So this is, we have learned how to use list variable, and then we have dictionary variable. So dictionary variable is something similar to what we have like hash maps or hash tables where we have keys and values. So let us see how do we use it. Again, let me go back to my right, and in the test suite I will say right click, new dictionary variable, and again let me refer the username and password from here. So I will give it any name, let us say login, and here I will say username equals admin, and then I can say password equals admin. So username is the key and admin is the value, and again password is the key and admin is the value. Okay, and now I will refer it in my test case. So the syntax for dictionary variable is and symbol and then curly braces, and inside the curly braces we have the variable name. So let me do this thing here. Here in the password I will just remove this and I will say and curly braces the name of the list variable, which is login, and then I have to give the key. So I have to take the password from here. Okay, and let us just save, and again let me try to run it and see if the list variable gets referenced properly. It goes to the URL and yes, it has entered the password and logs into the application. So we are done with dictionary variable as well. And I told you that we have another variable called environment variable. And here what we can do is we can get or set the operating system environment variables. So for example, let me show you an example for this. Let me have another step where I want to log something to the console. So I will say log to console, and I will say user1 ran this test on Windows OS. Okay, and what will happen is after the test is run, this line will be printed on the console that user1 ran the test on Windows operating system. However, I do not want to hardcode this user1 and the operating system, and I want that this should be taken from the environment variable. So let me go to command prompt and say if I want to take the username. So let me see the username, which is Raghav Pal, and let me say what is the OS, which is Windows NT. So what I will do is for environment variables, the syntax is percentage and the variable name. So what I will do here is instead of user1, I will say percent username ran this test case on percentage curly braces and the environment variable name, and that's it. Let me save and let us run and see if we get the environment variables referenced properly or not. So it goes to the browser, goes to the website, logs in, and it should close the browser now. And let us wait to see what it enters on the console. And you can see it entered what we wanted, which is the username it has taken from the environment variables and the operating system as well. So this is very handy when you want to log some messages or log something in the report. This becomes very handy. So this is about environment variables, and let us now go to some useful tips. So if a non-existent variable is used in the test data, the keyword using it will fail. So in case you are using any variable which is not existent, or sometimes if you make a spelling mistake, then that particular keyword will fail. You can also set the variables from command line. So this is a very good option that you have, that you can set all your variables from command line. So you never have to go again and again on the UI, on the right IDE and change it. We will learn how to do that in the next sessions. Variables are case insensitive, so they are not case sensitive. But as a best practice, we use uppercase variable names for global variables and then lowercase variables for local variables. So in case you are setting some global variables that will be used across test cases, use uppercase letters, and for local variables which will be used within the same test case, you can use lowercase variables. Also, we have built-in variables. So this is a URL. I will have this URL in the description as well. So there are some built-in variables in Robot Framework. So let us go and see. So here you can use all these built-in variables. So for example, you can directly call curdir, which is an absolute path to the directory where the data file is located. Similarly, you can say tempdir and other things. And there are many other variables, for example, test name. So you can say dollar in curly braces test name. This will print the name of the current test case. So you can refer this test name, test case, documentations, and all those things. So this is very handy. You can make use of these built-in variables. So that is all on variables. So today we learned what are variables in Robot Framework and how do we use different kind of variables. I hope this session was very useful for you. In the next sessions, we will learn more about different features of test cases, test suites, and keywords in Robot Framework. Thank you for watching.